One second. Okay. Bismillah. Wassalatu wassalam. Rasulullah. Wabat. In the name of Allah and the peace and blessings of Allah be upon his last and final messenger. As to what follows, family, friends, foes, haters, and hateettes, welcome back to the features. I greet you all in peace and love and no hatred in my heart. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon all of you. And before we begin, please like, please subscribe, please share, and hit me up on Patreon. As you know, we got a lot of haters up in here. As you know, I was off for a while off of YouTube because YouTube apparently they in love with the cocoa. Okay, and we're not talking about no illicit drugs or anything like that. We're talking about a certain illness that is spreading like wildfire for the last couple of years, and they in love with the cocoa. You know what I mean? They're so in love with it. And if you say anything against the popular narrative about the cocoa, they will shut you down if you're on YouTube, and they will essentially strike your channel, which is pretty much what happened to me. So I need you guys to please go to my mirror sites, which is the infamous features on YouTube. Go there and subscribe to the infamous features on YouTube, and also subscribe to the features on library. That's lbry.com. Okay, so subscribe to those two channels, inshallah, and support the features on the mirror sites as well, because it's only a matter of time before they shut us down again. You know what I mean? So in order for us to keep bringing you this stuff, we are going to keep it going on the mirror sites as well. Whenever that time comes when somebody strikes my videos, or puts a strike on my channel, or whatever it is, you know what I mean? At least we can keep it going, inshallah. Okay, so that is the infamous features on YouTube, or on library, the features on library. So like, subscribe, share, hit me up on Patreon, and let's get right into it. So family, this topic here about cultish language and cultish behavior, I wanted to talk about this for actually quite some time, but I wanted to, give it it's like kind of like its proper due. And I think now is a good time to talk about it, since there's a lot of things happening on YouTube right now, and as well as on Facebook, where you find Muslims at each other's throats. You have, for example, all this type of infighting about Muhammad Abdul Wahab, and then you have, the Sufis and the Shia, and all kinds of crazy stuff going on online. But I wanted to deal with it specifically as it relates to, of course, the Black community, and how cultish language, walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Rabia, how cultish language and mesmerizing language is used to essentially control the minds of Black people. And this is nothing new within the Black community. It's been happening since the Black church, since the times of the Black church. So we're going to go back in history a little bit, and then I'm going to bring you up to speed, okay? Inshallah. So at the time of Nat Turner, who was one of my heroes, okay? Nat Turner, for those of you who don't know Nat Turner, he was a slave and a pastor at the time of slavery who led one of the bloodiest slave revolts in American history. He essentially slaughtered many slave masters their families, their children, everything, right? And that whole rebellion, ironically enough, was ratted out by what we call meritorious manumission house Negroes. And what is meritorious manumission? Meritorious manumission is an actual slave law or code, and you still have meritorious manumission Negroes today, in which what they do is there are these laws, and it's basically broken down into three essential things. Where if a slave was to invent something that benefited white society or save a white person's life or rat out or catch runaway slaves, right? If you did one of these three things, then you would earn your freedom, right? And that law is called meritorious manumission. So this rebellion was quelled by snitching, essentially snitching. It is a law which encourages snitching so that people and black people actually sold out other black people for literal fried chicken and butter biscuits, right? That's why you catch me saying butter biscuit all the time. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, al Idrisi, all right? That's why you find me saying, he's a biscuit, he's a butter biscuit. You understand? Because they literally sold out their own people for butter biscuits and fried chicken. You understand? So Nat Turner, he was sold out for this, and that whole slave rebellion was quelled. Well, what does this have to do with, cultish language? I'm getting to that, right? After the slave rebellion was quelled, what you had was the white slave owners had then stepped up their efforts to control the black church. And they would put white pastors in the slave churches in order to preach to them. And then they started preaching all of the verses of slavery to black folk. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Riley. They started preaching all the verses of slavery to black folk. And because Nat Turner at that time, he was actually he was a legit preacher, right? So he was preaching, to black people. And on top of that, they stepped up their efforts to illegalize reading for black people. So if a black person was caught reading and whatnot, they would get severely punished and even killed just for reading. So the black church was essentially used to control the minds of black people. And so much so that they had a special Bible for black people, which was called the Slave Bible. And you can look this up. It's a real thing, where they left out pretty much all of the Old Testament, and it just left the New Testament and emphasized, oh, slaves, love your masters and all this kind of stuff, right? So again, what does this have to do with cultish lingo? I'm getting to it. Okay, just relax, okay? Yes, this is exactly what happened in the residential schools in Canada, Idrisi. It's the same thing. They indoctrinated the people with the Bible in order for them to make them know that white people were superior and that slaves had to obey their masters and love their masters and even there's a verse in the Bible, love your master as if you love your Lord himself, and all this kind of stuff, right? These Pauline type verses, right, from Paul. Anyways, so this was getting pushed down the throats of black people. And now, of course, white people preaching to black people in black churches is not sustainable. Because there's so many slaves, and there's not that. And in those days, anyways, there were more black people, in the West than actual white people. You understand? That's how it was, right? Because there were so many slaves, and it wasn't possible for them to go to all these black churches. So what did they do? They started training their own black pastors to go to these black churches and preach the gospel of slavery to black people. Thus, the black church. Okay, that's how the black church was formed. You understand? That's how the black churches was formed, as a tool of indoctrination for black people. You understand? That's why you don't see, that's why you have a black church and a white church. This is the reason why. You understand? That's, the churches were also segregated for a very, very, very long time. And in many ways, they're still segregated as well. In many ways, they're not really integrated, even up until this day, this very day, because of this very reason. So the church doctrine was imposed on black people at a time where, you know, the dominant white society was afraid of slave revolts. You understand? How do you control all of these Negroes? How do you do it? How do you prevent them from rising up and having a Nat Turner event again? How do you do that? Well, you make slave laws, but those slave laws ain't enough. But if you can get those slaves to believe that God wants them to be slaves, then you will have a slave forever. And that was that was the whole idea behind the black church. You understand? That was the whole idea. So if you look at people like Booker T. Washington, for example, why was he so loved by white people at that time? And why were his policies and politics very successful for black people? Because he essentially made, I guess you could say, you don't want, like, he pretty much made, he didn't rule out cooning, put it that way, okay? But you can't really call it cooning in that time so much. But he said, you know, black people should not try to compete with white people. White people are superior. What we should be doing is we shouldn't even be trying to integrate into their society. And what we should be doing is working for ourselves and building for ourselves, and leave white people with white people and black people with black people. And that was his whole thing. You understand? It was, his whole thing was basically bowing down, acknowledging that the white society is dominant, and we should get involved in trades and whatnot. And up until this very day, his university in Tuskegee, I believe, I want to say Tuskegee, is still successful. You know, he was the first black person invited to the White House, and those people who from that Booker T. Washington camp, from that side, they generally tend to be successful. You understand? But anyways, so from this black church, black people have learned certain catchphrases and quotes that have stifled progress for them for a very long time, a very, very, very long time. And this, like, for example, if you look at Martin Luther King, but at the time, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, what was he talking about? He was talking about, you know, we shall overcome and peaceful protest and all this kind of stuff. And up until this very day, black people are affected by this we shall overcome peaceful protest mentality. And in Islam, you know, we have a system which is very pragmatic and practical. You know, if you are not able to practice your religion where you are, you have two choices: you leave or you fight. You feel me? But nowhere in Islam does it say to try to convince your enemy to give you rights. You understand? Nowhere in Islam does it say to try to convince your enemy to give you rights. Can you imagine, those of you who know about Moses and Pharaoh, Musa and Pharaoh, can you imagine Musa at that time going up to Pharaoh and telling him, you know, hey, Pharaoh, let's integrate. You know what I'm saying? Let's all be one and let's be together and kumbaya. You know, can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? What would he look like doing that? As a matter of fact, black people are the only people on earth that I know of that beg their enemy for equal rights. I don't know anybody else who does that on earth. And that is because of this type of cultish, mind controlling behavior that is indoctrinated in us. I said all that to get to that. Okay. So, likewise, just like we were cultishly indoctrinated in the black church, we were also somewhat, to some extent, culturally indoctrinated when we became Muslim. And very similar tactics were used on black folk by Muslims. Very, very, very similar tactics. And I'm going to get right to it, inshallah. So some of you might have heard of Aaliyah, Abdullah Battle, right? He wrote these papers a while ago, back in 2015, right? It was called Cult Characteristics Among the Salafis in the West, right? And these papers pretty much blew up the internet. And recently he reshared these papers, and I said, you know what, this is a good topic to get into right now. Now, if you read these papers, even though he's talking specifically about Salafis, the principles that he's bringing forth can be applied to many different groups from amongst the Muslims. You understand? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read some of these parts. Actually, we'll look at it together, inshallah. So, like, subscribe, share. Hit me up on Patreon. Okay? So, one second. Let me share this here with you so you guys can see for yourself. All right? Hold on. If you're on YouTube, you won't. If you're on Facebook, you won't be able to see it, but you'll be able to see it on YouTube, inshallah. If you want to move over to YouTube, inshallah. Okay, so let's check this out. Okay, so here he has the definition. So he's defining cults and hizbiyah, right? So he says here, right, that a structured group, most of whose members demonstrate unquestioned loyalty to a dynamic leader. The cult leader governs most, if not all, aspects of the lives of his or her followers, often insisting that they break all ties with the world outside of them. Such groups are usually thought of in terms of religion, although there are other types of cults can and do exist. And he footnotes this definition here. And then he goes, the fundamental principles that define a cult are the following. Followers of an excessive system of religion, beliefs, and practices. Followers of an exclusive system of religious beliefs and practices. Exclusive system. Obsessive, especially faddish, devotion to or veneration for a person, principle, or thing. And a religion or religious sect generally considered extremist or false. So what I want y'all to do is just type in the comments Put some people who you think fit this description, right? That are not Salafi. That are not Salafi. So that I know that I'm not crazy. Okay? Just type in the comments who you think fits this description from people that are not Salafi. Like, subscribe, share. Then he gives over here, he gives in his chapter 4, programming tactics and behavioral patterns. And he writes, they claim to have the truth alone. These people, they claim to have the truth alone. They say we believe in what is sent down to us, right? In Surah Al-Baqarah, right? Holding individual fanaticism and zealotry for one's party group, whether they are upon the truth or falsehood, was a must according to them. So Allah revealed what he did concerning that matter. Sheikh Ahmed al-Najmi Rahimahullah said about this point, a person being fanatical for his group and aiding them, even though they are wrong, is not permissible. It's la yajuz, it's not permissible. Okay? It's only permissible to stand up for the truth. Although that person may be an outsider and your close relative are on falsehood. You must help the one far from you against the person dear to you by saying you are wrong. You understand? So even if your close relative is wrong and an outsider is right, you aid the truth, not your relative. That's the point here. They claim to follow the Salaf. They claim to follow the Salaf, Salaf Salih, okay? While in fact they openly oppose and contradict them. Okay? Now he's talking about Salafis, right? He's talking specifically about Salafis, the brother Abu Aaliyah, right? However, there are many people that fit this script in general. I'm just saying in general, okay? Now look here, right? Peer pressure. In this chapter, he writes peer pressure. It's not uncommon to feel uncomfortable in a situation where our opinions and beliefs are not the same as others in our group. And if you have a different opinion than the people in your group, you're going to feel uncomfortable. You understand? And this is a characteristic of cultish behavior. Okay? Do we conform or do we hold our own? It's possible that we might just conform simply because we don't think they'll ever see our point, since the odds are so stacked against us. To grasp a more vivid understanding about dangers of peer pressure, reflect on the story of Abu Talib on his deathbed. Okay, that was a great analogy right there. Abu Talib on his deathbed was being encouraged by the Prophet ﷺ to accept Islam. Just say La ilaha illallah. Only say it. Just say it. You know, even if you have something in your heart, you don't really mean it, but at least say it so that on Yawm al-Qiyamah, you know, that the Prophet ﷺ, he would have an excuse, like he'd be able to make intercession for you. He couldn't even do that because the people were telling him, you know, will you leave the religion of your ancestors? Will you leave the religions of your forefathers? Peer pressure. You understand? He was invited to Islam but refused after Abu Jahl and Abdullah bin Umaysa said, "O Abu Talib, will you leave the religion of Abu Muttalib?" Those two keep mounting that peer pressure on him, and until his final words were, "I'm on the religion of Abdul Muttalib." Okay? And this point here, the attack of independent thought. Okay? The attack of independent thought. Cult Hizbi groups highly discourage independent thought and deductive reasoning. Those who question the group's motives and practices are attacked and viewed as arrogant and may be considered as sinful. Blind absolute acceptance of the group's position is mandatory of its members, and any contrary belief held is considered deviance. Now, we know that the people at Salafi publications and Troy and whatnot, they brought you this cultish behavior. We understand that, right? But what I'm saying is that if you just take these principles here, It's not just them. It's not just them. I had a run-in with a brother recently, and I think most of you will know by now if you've seen what you call it, the live I did last time. I was alluding to how you can't control the way people react to things that you say, even though if you don't mean any harm by the things that you say. All I did was mention Sheikh Albani's name, rahimahullah, and the brother lost his mind. All right, but that is cultish behavior. That is cultish behavior. Now we're going to listen to this linguist. Her name is Amanda Montel, inshallah, and we're going to listen to her. Now she don't know anything about us, right? She don't know anything about no Muslims or nothing like that, right? But she's going to get into detail about cultish language. Okay. Now listen now.
Cults often change members' names to carry out. So those new names are to help split you away from your past. Almost without exception, each cult develops its own lingo, its own jargon. The purpose of that is to give the people some idea that they're joining this very special group that talks in a certain way and has certain knowledges. It has a second purpose. It separates those people from talking with their family, their friends, because they have to speak two Englishes. The English that's used in their cult, in which language is used in a very different way than in the outside world, and then having to almost translate their thoughts after they've been speaking cult jargon for a long time into everyday English. Cult lingo fractures normal, sequential, reflective thinking. Because if you're in a cult and you're asked something by the cult leader, and you might want to say, no, I don't want to do that, you have to translate that into the cult jargon that says, I will do your bidding. So that you have to get rid of the negative, break up all that thinking that went with what you were asked, and reformulate what you're supposed to say. If you and I were in a cult, we would be talking abstractions and jargon that doesn't always have real visualizable images and pictures, and yet we'd have to act as if we really understood each other. One of the reasons cult leaders and closed, intense groups develop these abstract languages is that when we're a properly civilized person, we think we should be able to follow what someone says, and it's our fault if we don't. So we sort of turn inwardly. And in a way, if we're the least bit prone to trance induction, we're actually assisting the cult leader in our own trance induction by turning inwardly and seeking the meaning, trying to put more meaning into these abstract phrases. In many cultic groups, the leader speaks a lot in imagery and allegories in which he will describe the entire outer world as not pious, or as satanic, or as unenlightened. And it's part of stopping reflective thinking, meaning he doesn't want them to think about what are they doing here giving their life to him? What are they doing giving their money, obeying, letting him beat their kids, have sex with their daughters? He doesn't want them doing that kind of reflective thought. So that the more that leaders speak in globalities, the more they keep you from thinking critically. And then pretty soon, you're almost trained like a pet dog. He speaks of Satan, and everybody knows you're supposed to think the outside world is bad because the leader just used that charged word.
Now, this woman, okay, she was mentioning that there is a special language, a special lingo that these cults and these cultists use, right? They have certain catchphrases, a certain specific language that the cult understands. Y'all hearing me? She don't know nothing about us. Do you know some people like this as a Muslim? Let's be real, people. Do you know some people that have a special language that they use that is for their group? I'm just saying. So with the whatchamacallit, these I don't even consider these guys Salafi, you know what I mean? They're more like I don't even know what they are. They're like their own religion, man. These pubs in Troy and like this. I don't know what to call them, but definitely not Salafi. Definitely not Salafi. They're not Salafi, but they have their own language. You have to follow the manhaj of the Salaf. Fudayl ibn Riyad said. Ahmed bin Hanbal said. Sheikh Rabi'a said. They have their own special language that they use, and if you're not with that language, then you are a deviant. You are dal mudil. You know what I mean? You're off the manhaj. No critical thinking at all. Nothing. You understand? Just the catchphrases, and you're good. You're good. Then you have the hardcore, like these Sufi types, like the Ashari Maturidi types. You have to follow a madhab. You have to have an isnad leading right down to the Prophet. You have to have a sheikh that's so many generations, blah 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 blah. If you don't have this isnad, then you can't even quote a hadith. Like they have their own language. They have their own language. And then when you ask them questions like, why are we selling the Prophet's birthday again? Why are we doing this again? Listen, I have an isnad from blah, 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 blah. Don't ask any questions. You know what I mean? Why are we dancing in circles again? Why are we doing this thing with the duff again? I am the ustad and you're the murid. You understand? It's a cult. Just call it what it is. It's a cult. So when the Prophet ﷺ, when he came with this message of Islam, he came to actually to free the people from that stuff. And Allah says in the Quran explicitly, "La ikraha fi din qad tabayyana rushdu min al-ghayy." There's no compulsion in religion. The truth is clear from the falsehood. It's not upon the people to try to force other people to believe what they believe. And when you find people going down that path, then there's a problem. When you find people, all they can do is mention specific personalities all the time, there's a problem. You understand? And now why does this affect the Black community so much? Because you'll find that Black people that are like in these type of cults, they never progress either spiritually or financially or education. Never. There's no progress made because their entire life is dedicated to these groups. The same way that we were dedicated to the Black church, now we're dedicated to the church of Rabi'a or the church of Madhab, or you know what I'm saying? Now listen to this. Let's listen to this other audio from Amanda Montel. 1 second. The second audio. 1 second.
Cults use denigration and ridicule and humiliation as a control mechanism in the following way. In the cult, it has become your new family. And your whole status in this new family depends on them liking you and treating you nice. And if the leader keeps making fun and showing that you're a dope and that you just are a bad person, then you're so humiliated all the time. And you're going to keep working, trying to get in his graces and try to get some praise from the other people, so that in a rather harmful way, it's used as a motivator. It's not a mental health producing motivator. But within those tight, controlled confines, it's used to show the leader is so pure, so above it all, so powerful, and you are this lowly follower.
Now, did you hear that? Did you hear that? In Muslim circles, it's rare. Okay, I try my best. Wallahi, I try my best. You don't find me on my channel dogging any other group, group that claims. I don't dog them like that. You know what I mean? I don't say the Sufis like this, the Ash'aris like this, the Maturidis like this, the Shias like this, the whatever. I don't do that, right? For this same reason, what she said right here, man. For the same reason. Exactly what she said right here. You know, cults have a method of disparaging people in order to motivate them to come to their side. You understand? So you will find these ultra dogmatic mind control people. What do they always say? You know, they always talk about some proof thing. You know what I mean? Some proof thing. You know, I have the proof. I'm upon the truth. You know what I mean? Who are you? You know, I have this, I have that. You know what I mean? This is what they do. They always do that. And mind you, she don't know us. She don't know us. Do you guys know some people like this? Do you know some people like this?
Cults use denigration and ridicule and humiliation as a control mechanism.
Do you know some people like that? Do you know some people that use denigration as a control mechanism? That's their go-to move with the epithets and the insults and stuff. If you don't believe what I believe, I'm going to insult you. I'm just saying. I am just saying. You guys see why I'm not sectarian now? Mind you, the enemy, they know all these tactics. They know all this stuff. And they know who to plant, who to put to get people emotionally attached to these personalities, you know? Black people in general, we love a good speaker, man. We love us a good speaker. We love us like somebody who can preach. And if we can get somebody who can preach, we'll get attached to the preacher no matter what that preacher does. So if you listen to some of these people, I guess you could say, I don't know what to call these guys. You know, some of them are actually pretty good speakers. You know, Abu Khadija is pretty, you know, he's not a bad speaker. You know what I mean? He'll get you hype. You know what I mean? You know, Bilal Davis is not such a bad speaker. You know what I'm saying? They're not bad. You know, the really good ones back in the day were like Abu Muslima, Dawud Adib, Abu Usama. Even Abu Usama, he's still really good. You know. A really good speaker that I enjoy today is Shadeed Muhammad, a really good speaker. You know what I mean? But what Abu Khadija did, he used his voice, and you'll find him repeating himself over and over and over again, right? And when you start this repetition thing, if what it does, it's like it mesmerizes you. You understand? It's like mesmerism, like hypnotism. You feel me? So I'm just saying, do you know some people like this? Let's continue. Like, subscribe, share, hit me up on Patreon.
To be present is that it is in a next condition that needs to be present is that it is in a system where you can't complain to management. You just acquiesce. It is a closed system in which management's always right, you're wrong. And see, within a cult, the leaders don't want little factions and segments because the cult will come apart if factions are allowed to grow. So that's why they're totalitarian and autocratic.
I just want to pause here, right? For those brothers who are Sufi and Shia and are listening to this, do you know some people like this? Let's just be real now. And this is not a dogmatic sectarian thing. Do you know some people like this? Where you cannot question them because the person, your teacher, your ustad, your sheikh, you know, he knows everything. You're not supposed to question him. Just ask yourself that question. Why would we leave Christianity to follow a worse form of Christianity? This is worse than, you know what I'm saying? Why would we do that? Like, legit, you're not allowed to think for yourself? Like, legit, you have to blind follow the sheikh? You have to? Like, it's a must? And if you question the sheikh, what happens if you question the sheikh? I'm asking now. You feel me? We as black people, we got to do way better. We have to do better. Let's continue.
You see, in a democracy, you get many, many little factions. And in a democracy, we all get turns at running the society. One year it's your group, next year it's my group, another year it's someone else's. When you're running a cult, you don't let it get democratic. And you do everything you can to break up bonding between people and keep the bonding to the leader. There are cults where former members have told me that the leader said to them, you're going to have to learn to obey. And as time went on, they learned more and more how to obey. And eventually the leader would say to them, even if I say 2 and 2 is 5, you must say 2 and 2 is 5.
Do we know some people like this, family? Do we know some people that no matter what they say, if you don't obey that person, you're going to be disparaged? What were they doing in the early 2000s in if you were with Spubs and them? What were they doing to marriages because of this stuff? What were they doing? If you had a different opinion. No, I don't believe that, you know, Abul Hassan al-Ma'rabi is deviant. I don't accept that. If you're a husband or a wife of somebody who accepts the opposite, what will happen to that family? Because of Abul Hassan al-Ma'rabi. Not because the Quran says, not because the Sunnah says, not because they disbelieved in Allah, not because they disparaged the Sahaba, not because any of that. Not because they stopped making salah. Not because they didn't stop fasting in Ramadan. They stopped fasting in Ramadan. None of that. If you have a different opinion about a human being, what was done to these marriages? Come on, talk to me. Talk to me. Put in the comments, please. Talk to me. You think it's jokes? You think it's jokes? You know, when Islam was spreading in the black community, Allah gave us this good. He gave us this good with the Quran and the Sunnah and whatnot, and it was new, it was fresh. But as Allah says in the Quran, "Ahasiba an-nasu an yutraku an yaqulu amanna wa hum la yaftunun." Do the people think that they're going to say with their mouths that we believe and they won't be tested? We were tested. We were tested. There was a point where there wasn't any sectarianism, and now all it is sectarianism. The whole religion became sectarianism. The whole religion became about people, personalities, this person, that person. It became more about the people than Allah himself. So when you see me showing mercy to my people, black people, if he's Sufi, if he's Shia, if he's nation, if he's whatever, Christian, if he's Hebrew Israelite, when I'm showing mercy to these people, when I'm, not shouting them down, not insulting them, not like insulting their intelligence and all kind of stuff. All I'm trying to do is deliver the message. That's it. I'm not trying to get dragged into no argument and no debate. It's up to you to accept it or reject it. But it's not up to me to guide you. You understand? Most of y'all think that when you talk to somebody for 5 minutes, they're supposed to accept your message at that time. And if they don't accept what you're saying at that time, they're deviant. Most of y'all think like that. You don't know if Allah will guide them a year from now, 2 years from now, 10 years from now. You don't know. Maybe it's the way that you're delivering the message. Maybe the person is thinking about it. You don't know what's in their heart. You legit, you don't know. You see, we as black people, we've seen so much harshness. And we've seen so much, what's the word I'm looking for, man? Like when something happens to black folk, we have the entire Muslim ummah just incredibly dismissive, like uber dismissive of the black struggle. Uber dismissive. They only tell you, don't talk about blackness. They don't say this to anybody else. They don't say to Palestinians, don't talk about your Palestinian struggle. They don't say the Syrians, don't talk about your Syrian struggle. They don't say the Kashmiris, don't talk about your Kashmiri struggle. That's for you only. So when I am being merciful to my people, it's because number one, it's the Sunnah to show mercy to the people, right? Even the brother I talked to the other day, up until now, I have not thrown any epithets or insults at him. Even though he did even made a video yesterday again because of me. You know what I mean? I have yet to say a single bad or harsh word to him. You know what I'm saying? And the other side to that is because if we don't show mercy to each other, you better believe nobody else is going to show you any mercy. They've already shown you that they don't show you mercy. You feel me? We have got to do better. If you are a Muslim, if we have a disagreement, let's leave all of this fanatical, compulsive, obsessive, overzealous, emotionally attached language to people, personalities, concepts. Leave all of that alone. Let's go refer right back to the Quran and right back to the authentic ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ. And let's solve our issues like that first. Even though I myself identify as a Salafi, you don't ever catch me saying, to the people, I call you to Salafiyah. Never. Never, ever, ever, ever. Why? Because I know and I understand that many of you have a bad taste in your mouth because of the actions of other Salafis. And I myself give them that work, and you've seen that already. I gave them that work, not because they're Salafi, because how do I say this? Okay, remember I was trying to think of a name for these guys, right? Because I'm like, they're not Salafi. They're not, because the word Salafi, what it means is that you follow the Quran and you follow the Sunnah, but the way you understand it is the way that the Salaf Salih understood it, right? So then you say you're Salafi, right? These people, right? Are their manners of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Are their actions the actions of the Sahaba? I'm just saying, you know what I mean? Do they have those actions, Stubbs and Troy in them? Are they bringing people together, or are they chasing people away from Islam? Are they exemplifying or trying to exemplify the perfect manners of the Prophet ﷺ as much as they possibly can? Are they doing that? Or is it something different that they bring into the people? So in the time that we live in with identity politics, you know what I mean? I was born a man but identify as a woman, or I was born a woman, I identify as a tranny or whatever. I identify as whatever. What are these names, man? What are some of these names? I don't know. You know what I mean? Gender, identify as gender fluid, and pansexual, identity politics, right? Well, with them, because I couldn't figure out a name, well, you can call them, you can say that they're assholes, but they identify as Salafis. You see what I'm saying? You're an asshole who identifies as a Salafi. I'm just saying, all right? That's the only way I can describe you. That's the only, excuse my language if you got kids, but you know what I'm saying? So next time they say that they're Salafi, you just say, oh, I get it. Really, you're an asshole, but you identify as a Salafi. Okay, I understand you. Now. That's what they mean. Their Salafi is not like the way I think about Salafi at all, period. You feel me? So these identity politics that we have in the Black community, it's an old tactic used from, like I said, the times of slavery, in order to keep the people pacified and fighting each other. We didn't have this problem before, and all of a sudden we got this problem. All of a sudden. And ain't nobody asking why. You see what I'm saying? See, Abdullah Isa, Muhammad's peace be upon him, said, racism will never leave the Ummah. Exactly. Racism will not leave the Ummah. And that's why, for us, we have to be a lot more, pragmatic in our approach to Muslims. You see, we can't just keep falling for the okie doke every time. Hassan Abdullah said, yeah, it's not from Islam to cause division by bringing up racism. Frankly, this argument is absurd way to hand to hand wave. Yeah, it's an absurd way to hand wave race. Exactly, that's what it is. You know, there's no racism in Islam and all that kind of stuff. Okay, there's no racism in Islam, but you're still a racist. Just say, you know what I'm saying? Dala Isa, I see African Muslim slaves being denied for Jews whom constructed slave trade at Speaker's Corner. You know, with these, what you call it? You know, with the what you call it, the tribe of Judah, you know, or the original Jews. From what I understand, the original ones are from Africa. That's from what I understand. Allahu Alam. Allahu Alam. You understand? The original ones. What I understand is that the Jews that we see today in Israel and Palestine, those are Ashkenazi Jews. They converted in the 8th century from Europe as a form of political expediency, because the Muslims were coming from they were coming from the south, pushing north, and the Christians were coming from the east, pushing west in that Turkish region. You understand? And the people were either becoming Muslim or Christian because they're monotheistic religions. So these people, they didn't want to convert to either Christianity or Islam because they had their own identity. So for political expediency, they became Jewish. And that's who we see today in Israel. Black Muslims are most oppressed by satanic rulers of earth, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Exactly. And we have to look at why we are being so humiliated throughout the earth. You understand? A lot of this humiliation would be actually solved if we took the Quran and the Sunnah more seriously than our dogmatic, compulsive, fanatical groups. We have Islam now. We have the ability to read Quran and learn Arabic. Let me tell you something. Do you guys know who Dwight York is? Dwight York. Do you guys know who he is? Imam Isa al-Hadi al-Mahdi, right? This man who got arrested a couple of years ago for molesting hundreds of children because he ran a cult, right? So his cult back in the day was very popular, very influential in the Black community. It was the Ansar Allah. Then eventually they became this cult, which you know is the indigenous cult. These people running around the East Coast saying that they're indigenous Indians and stuff. That's him. He's the one who started that. They also became aliens, these ancient Egyptians. So you see these Kemet people who are claiming to be ancient Egyptian. That's also him, right? He started many cults. But the point is, when he was Muslim, you know, when he was the Ansar Allah cult, he had everybody, and I mean everybody, every man, woman, and child in his cult, reading, writing, speaking, and listening, the 4 language skills in the Arabic language, all of them, not some, all of them. So if this cult, like legit, like cultist can get everybody in his cult, man, woman, and child, to read, write, listen, speak Arabic, then what are we doing? Fighting each other. You know what I'm saying? That's what we're doing. We're putting our energy in fighting each other. Let's listen to one more audio intro, because I've been here for an hour, so I don't want to make this too long. So I have a couple of steps. Like, subscribe, share, hit me up on Patreon.
A pseudo-personality in the context of cult life refers to the personality that gets displayed after a person gets adapted to the cult social re-socialization training. So that when relatives say, my son just doesn't seem like himself anymore. Or a wife will say, my husband has been going to all of these meetings and he's changed so much, he just doesn't seem like his old self. What they're describing is the elicited behavior that the cult is getting into place, that is displayed in social circumstances that call for it. And remember, the behavior learned in cults will wither if you're away from the cult long enough, because it is a superimposed identity. It is a pseudo identity. It is a pseudo personality.
What she's describing here is cult burnout. She's describing cult burnout. When you become Muslim and you get taken in by one of these cultists, and then you start getting what's the word I'm looking for? The spell starts wearing off. You're not as spellbound as you were before. You're not as captivated as you were before. You get disenchanted with the cult. One or two things will happen. Either you're going to get burnt out, you might leave Islam altogether, or you're going to naturally distance yourself from those people to find yourself. You understand? If you go on YouTube, you'll find these people who call themselves ex-Muslims. The ex-Muslim group, right? All of these ex-Muslims, you know what I'm saying? Ex-Muslim is not an identity. I don't understand why these guys identify themselves with ex-Muslims, but anyway, they do. I know they do it for money. They do it for the biscuits and stuff. You know what I mean? But anyways, you'll find some of them that were just burnt out by this cultish behavior, and that's why they left Islam. Not because Islam isn't the truth, or they found some contrary. No, they left because of the behavior of the people. You understand? They left because of the behavior of the people. So it's imperative that you fix your behavior. You understand? But anyways, I think that's enough now, guys. We've been on for just over an hour. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, share, and also subscribe to the mirror channels, inshallah. Right? This is why Brother Bilal is very against sectarianism. It's dangerous. It destroys communities. It destroys families. It pigeonholes you inside one of these cults, and you end up believing that your cult is on the truth and everybody else is on some other stuff, when the guidance is from Allah. What we say is, Ma yahdihillahu fala mudilla wa ma yudlil fala hadiya lahu. Whoever Allah guides, none can lead him astray, and whoever Allah has led astray, none can guide him. That guidance is from Allah. I don't know any hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, he basically used this type of language. Dal mudil, you know what I mean? I don't know any hadith like that. But anyways, that's what I want to leave you guys with. This cultish behavior is extremely dangerous and counterproductive. And as long as Black people are on that stuff, we're not going anywhere. And as long as we keep doing that stuff, we're legit not doing anything. Right? So, subhanaka la bihamdik wa shalla ant wa astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.